Yes, I'm Nicole Moore. I'm an accredited dietitian, and I'm going to talk about food, obviously, today. And I just want to kind of make low carb something that we can live in our life every day. So this is about, if you've just started the journey, you should be able to fill your toolbox with lots of low carb information. If you've been on the journey for a while, then maybe you'll take one or two things away. I guess as a dietitian, it's really important that it can be a really overwhelming journey to start. So I really like to try and make it as practical as possible. So yes, that's me. I am director as well at Low Carb Keto Health, which is mine and my team's passion. I'm also the Defeat Diabetes dietitian and work alongside lovely Dr. Peter Bruckner and Dr. Paul Mason. So I do all the behind-the-scenes stuff and a lot of the masterclasses and lessons all about food. So this is my great team at Low Carb Keto Health, and you've already met the amazing Dr. Laurie Lawler-Smith, so did a great talk on cholesterol. Myself, Jodie Bund, another director and also an amazing health coach, and Angela, who's our, which has got many hats. She's our practice manager and also a certified health coach as well. And, you know, we really just try to bring all pillars of what we think helps people on their low-carb journey, from a dietetic perspective, a medical perspective, and obviously a motivational and life perspective because, you know, as you mentioned, it's easy for me to give the knowledge and the doctor to give the knowledge, but we also need a support team of health coaches to help us do those things as well. So the services we have at the clinic are the medical, the nutritional and the coaching. And we do a face-to-face, one-on-one personal consultation session, which can be done via telehealth. And that's sort of our starting point. And then we have a 12-week program as well. And that's because, you know, we need people to stick in there for 12 weeks because there's ups and there's downs. And you need a lot of support along the way to really make these changes permanent. So basically, you'll get touch points with the dietitian, the doctor or the coach every week. There's a doctor-led metabolic health assessment with Dr. Laurie Lawler-Smith. I do personalised programs for people because the common question I get all the time is, okay, that sounds great education, what do I eat? So I put programs together. We do the CGM, so everyone gets their show bag with a CGM and keto monitoring system and some supplements for electrolytes. And they get our fantastic 70-page education book, which has everything in there to help them on their journey. And also a 12-month access to a membership, a community membership where you get community and you have recipes and online education. So that's sort of what we try to do at the clinic. And we also have our retreat coming, which is a good excuse to get away for the weekend, I think, but also to immerse yourself in low carb from a coaching and motivation and dietetic and doctor, I guess, approach. So that's what we do at the clinic. And today, let's move on because we've got limited time, is to how to live the low carb life with family and friends. And, you know, I have teenage kids and a husband who's Sri Lankan and, you know, my son's keto and my daughter's 50-50 and my husband when he feels like it. So we really have to try to, you know, do this in a way that's really efficient and easy. So again, if you've started the journey, you should get lots of tips today, and some of it's just really everyday stuff. And if you've been on the journey for a while, if you get a few tips to put in your toolbox, then I'll be really happy with that. So I'm going to get through a lot today in a short period of time. I'm going to do a very quick macronutrient refresh, and then really just what can we do to make sure we're putting the stuff in our pantry and fridge that is okay for our journey. So we'll navigate some food labels. I keep it really simple. We'll go through the supermarket. Low carb shopping list, you know, is on our stand. It's also in this amazing booklet that's been provided here today. We're going to do some navigating meal times because I'm sure we all know we have family that can be difficult and it can be hard when you start the journey as to, you know, suddenly trying to change your normal faves around. We're going to do some low carb supermarket swaps. And, you know, some of these swaps are just to make life easy and they're not necessarily things that I would say to have every day. But I think we can all just eat real food, but sometimes we actually need to know how to kind of, you know, add some everyday stuff in that's going to make life easy. We're going to talk about be kitchen efficient, cook, eat, cook once, eat twice, some mood menu planning, which is my little thing I do every week. And we have a basic muffin and frittata recipe over on the stand. And I guess the point of that recipe is to show once you get some basic recipes under your, up your sleeve, that you can make it into different alternatives, which just gives you variety without having to be too overly creative. Quick macronutrient refresh is that we know carbohydrates are what we're trying to avoid or limit. I'll go through some quick ones. Protein absolutely has been advised today. You need to prioritise it, and we find at the clinic when we do our Seeker machine testing, and it tests muscle mass and visceral fat, we see people all the time with low skeletal muscle mass for their age. So really prioritising meat, chicken, fish and eggs, and I usually teach people how much they need, and fat to satiety, which we all know is very important for us. And, as again the message has been here, we want to limit or avoid carbohydrates because, as we can see here, they all put sugar in our blood. And whether it's the natural carbohydrate like the banana at 7 teaspoons of sugar, or our, wonderful cappuccinos at 3.5, to honey, which everyone, always says to me, but honey's so natural, but it is still sugar. You've then got your starchy carbohydrates, which, again, break down to sugar, which is, again, why we think it's a no-brainer as to why we're teaching people to eat, carbohydrates if they've got high blood glucose, when we can see 2 slices of bread can, deliver up to 10 teaspoons of sugar. That lovely low GI sweet potato, still loads of sugar. And then the obvious stuff, which everyone always comes into me and says, but I don't eat sugar. I don't eat ice cream. I don't eat sweet biscuits. And I say, I know that. It's all the other stuff you eat every day. So low carb diets, 20 to 50 grams a day is a good starting point, and every 4 grams of carbs, a teaspoon of sugar. So that's why we have to eliminate it, reduce it, based on the knowledge we've learnt today and being reminded of with insulin resistance. So in order to make sure the stuff in your pantry and fridge is okay, what's important is to really understand food labels. And I keep it really, really simple. As a new dietitian, or in the industry when I was teaching the old stuff, I guess, is it was really complicated, and there was so much stuff I was trying to teach people. And really the simplicity of it is, I just want people to look at total carbohydrates per serving. We know that 4 grams of carbohydrate is technically a teaspoon of some form of sugar that's going to impact our body. So I just say keep it under 4 as close as you can, and I do it per serving. And then just be mindful of how many serves is in that pack, because, if you're having 1 serving and it's 4 grams of carb, okay, we're going to be all right with that. But if you're going to eat 3 or 4 serves, then you need to be mindful of that. And if you've got a carb allowance of 20 to 50 grams a day, it just helps you navigate the supermarket a little better. And that's really all I look at from looking at the nutrition panel, just to ensure people are keeping to their carbohydrate allowance to start with. But we also still need to look at the ingredients list, and the main couple of rules there is to make sure that you're avoiding vegetable and seed oils, because we know they're just as inflammatory as sugar. I'm also looking for obviously added sugar, but if we're looking at the nutrition panel and it's under 4 grams of carbohydrate per serving, then there shouldn't be any added sugar technically in there. I don't look at sugar because on a nutrition panel it's included in total carbohydrate. So don't look at sugar, always look at total carb, because you can look at a loaf of bread and it's got no sugar in it, but it's 40 grams of carbohydrate up to. So never look at sugar, because the carbohydrate total will include that. Looking for vegetable oils, and really if there's more than 5 ingredients, we need to be really mindful. Some of the products I look at today will have more than 5 ingredients, and I class them as amber foods, but we have to be real, is that we can't just always eat completely real food. If you have husbands and wives and children, then we need some flexibility. So hopefully I can give you some flexibility, and it's still going to keep you on your low carb path. That big, ingredients list that we just saw there was actually almond milk. So you do have to always be mindful. If you can't really determine what the product was from the ingredients list as well, that's also a good indication just to be mindful of what you're putting in your body. The other tip that I would look at the arrow is slightly skewed on this, is Maltitol is a little sneaky sweetener, and, again, real food is best, but just be really careful with maltitol. I do find a lot of people eating a lot of sugar-free products. The maltitol's added, and it can actually impact your blood glucose and your insulin. It has a higher GI than a lot of the other sweeteners because it has 50% calories of sugar, and depending on the type of maltitol in the product, it can have up to a GI of 52, and glucose is 100. So if you're eating a lot of those products with maltitol, a lot of my clients will see their CGMs going up, or they're not achieving their weight loss goals, and it's usually the sneaky culprit. Erythritol has a GI of 1 and stevia has 0, so they're, I guess, more compatible sweeteners if we're going to use sweeteners. And again, I'm looking at practicality here, so sometimes we need those options. What I'm looking at here is what we need to be aware of is claims. So just a few simple rules, again, to help make sure you're putting stuff in your pantry that is, going to help you on your journey. So you get a lot of no added sugar claims out there, and what you've got to be mindful of is that they still doesn't mean it's low carb. So this particular no added sugar biscuit still got 10 grams of carbohydrate, even though there's no added sugar, and that's 2 teaspoons of sugar, and per serving it's about 2 cookies. So it's not low carb. Gluten-free is a very common one. People come in, I'm low carb, and then they start, so I have gluten-free toast for breakfast, and it doesn't mean low carb. In fact, this Wonder White low carb bread has 30 grams of carbohydrate per serve. A lot of gluten-free products have also added sugar to them to make them taste better. The other claim, I guess, that's often out there is the olive oil-based claim. So everyone gets excited and blinded by, olive oil. And you need to really understand and look at your label because obviously, many of them you can see here is 14% olive oil. The rest of it is PUFAs, basically polyunsaturated fats, vegetable and seed oils. So don't be fooled by olive oil claims. The other common one I see is the low carb products, and everyone's like, oh my God, I found this low carb pizza base. And I'm like, I haven't seen that. Oh, definitely found one. And I'm like, I'm pretty on top of all the products coming out, but bring it in, or we Google it. And as you can see, this one here, and then, look at it and you think, okay, it's got 25 grams of carb, and that's in a quarter of that, and it's not very big. So, when you do that and, I've got a good appetite, I'm going to eat that whole thing. That's 26 teaspoons of sugar just in the base. So when you see low carb, just use my simple rule of under 4 grams of carb per serving, and then you'll at least know if it's low carb or not, because there's a lot of stuff coming out that isn't, I don't know what they compare it to sometimes, something that's got 1 million carbs in it, and they go, it's low carb, and it's not. So that's just a very brief, how to understand a label so you can fill your pantry and your fridge better. Just check total carbs per serve are under 4, avoid your veggie and seed oils, watch out for the sneaky maltitol, and don't rely on claims ever. And gluten-free is high carb. So they're my sort of rules, just to try and make sure you're loading up your trolley, pantry, fridge better. How do we navigate the supermarket? And again, just some simple rules I sort of try to, teach my clients is just avoid the middle aisle. I think we've been shown that everything sort of in the middle of the aisle is just highly processed. And again, I'm going to probably talk about some products that are possibly in there. But if we just, shop from the outside, that's where you're going to get your meat and your chicken and your full-fat dairy and your eggs and your nuts and your seeds and your berries and your fruit and veg. So avoid the middle, shop on the outer where possible. My other supermarket rules is obviously always shop from a list. I'm sure you've all been guilty of going in there, and I won't ask for hands, but you go in for one thing and you come out with 10 things. And, lots of those are those shiny ones that James was talking about, with, it was 2 for 1 block of chocolate, and, it said dark, and it's in my trolley and I bought 4. So try and go on your shop, take your shopping list with you, and don't go hangry, which is hungry and angry, because if you're hungry, you're going to go in there and buy everything that's shiny, and it's usually going to have a lot of sugar and carbs, because that's what they're, putting right in front of our faces. So technically the supermarket trolley rule looks like this. If your supermarket's full with your meat and your fatty fish and your full-fat dairy, your butter, ghee, olive oil, your eggs, and your above-ground veggies, the general rule I make is if it grows above the ground, you're safe, and it grows below the ground, you're going to get a lot more starch. There are a few exceptions to that rule, but that's just how I like to explain it. Keeps it simple. And be a hunter and gatherer. Now, I pretty much apply this kind of, quote to all my clients: wherever you are, be the hunter and the gatherer. So, what ran past your cave, and it wasn't a bowl of porridge or a loaf of bread, it was an animal. We hunted for meat, and we hunted for birds, and we gathered eggs and nuts and berries. We ate green stuff, and that's how we lived, and that's how we evolved. So whether you're in the restaurant, I say to my clients, if you can hunt it, you can eat it. So if you're looking at the pizza, you can't catch that, but if you're looking at the steak, then you're winning. And you can apply that wherever, and just try, and if you can catch it, you can eat it, except for your small children, which is one of my clients. Don't eat the children. Now, we've already done the shopping list, so I'm not going to really go over that. We've got one on our stand. There's an amazing shopping list in the book. But again, I'm here to say we can't always be like that. And so what can we do to bend the rules a little to make this doable? Because it has to be lifelong. It can't just be for 12 weeks, 8 weeks, and never again. It has to be something you learn to live. And so hopefully I can make it a bit more practical. And if you've been doing low carb for a while and you're doing all these things, then you're giving yourself a gold star. So, one of the things on the journey is we have to stick to family faves to start with, because it's very overwhelming to try and change your cooking straight away. And it's really just about subbing out. I used to say sub out the bottom. So just sub out the carbs and keep the top the same. But when you're doing sauces and dressings and your normal everyday recipes, just check your flavours that you're using in your sauces. We know swap potato mash for collie mash, cottage pies, steak and mashed potatoes, it tastes amazing. You swap your pasta for your zucchini noodles or konjac, and if you've not tried konjac, I'll show you. But my little hack for that is you must drain and rinse them. Ignore the weird smell, and then heat them in the microwave for about 6 minutes, and that'll dry those little suckers out, and then they stick to your sauce, and they need a lot of sauce though. So if you try them, or you had tried them like that. Then you can do your bolognese. You can swap breadcrumbs if you love crumbing for parmesan and almond meal. Just dip it in the egg and crumb it. Pork rinds and dukkha do really well for crumb. And if you have anything that you like to bind, your meatballs, your patties, then generally I use almond flour. So almond meal for crumbing, almond flour for binding. And that kind of sticks everything together. And I would suggest if there's anything that you're not familiar with, is just take a picture. That way, you don't have to be squiggling notes, because I will flick through them. Lasagna is good old zucchini strips, your collie rice, instead of your regular rice. And I'm married to a Sri Lankan, so he will say to me that doesn't taste a whole lot like rice. But I will show you my flatbread that I use for a go-to, because that makes him complain less. Mexican taco shells, lettuce cups, or cheese tacos, or low-carb wraps. I'm a bit of a fan of low-carb wraps. I like to be efficient in the kitchen, and the cheese tacos that you can make, it's literally just piles of cheese in the oven, and who doesn't like cheese? And you heat it really high, and when you bring them out, you put them over a rack, and they make delicious taco shells. But if you, like me, want to be quick and easy, I've got lettuce cups and low-carb wraps there, and the family can choose. What we're looking at for burrito night is I use, again, low-carb wraps or lettuce. And, this is stuff I've brought my kids up from, forever. So they don't really question it anymore, which is really, really good. Pizza, if you haven't tried fathead dough pizza, then you must. Well, once you do that recipe, you can be very creative with it. And if you go to our Keto Health website, we've got the garlic pizza there, which is the fathead pizza dough. And once you get creative with that, you can do sausage rolls, you can do little kind of pasty-like things, and you'll get super creative with giving yourself variety. And then rice or egg noodles or konjac noodles. Hamburgers, you use your mushrooms, you use lettuce. I tend to use meat patties a lot, and then put the filling in between, so my kids love that. Cloud bread's another great bread swap, so Google cloud bread, you'll find it. It's made with cream cheese and eggs, so you don't think it would make bread, but it does. And then we've got the seed crackers. So again, if you can make keto seed crackers, I like to be efficient, so I'll show you one you can buy. if you like flatbread, just take a picky of this because I won't spend long because I'm seeing my time. So you literally are just putting coconut flour and psyllium husk and some boiling water and bits and pieces. It makes a great little dough. You roll it out. I've got a tortilla press and makes a flexible dough, and that can be used for so many things. So that's a go-to I use often. And, you can put jalapenos in it for Mexican night, and it looks like you've got lots of creativity in the kitchen, but it's the same recipe. You can see I love cooking. Be kitchen efficient. There we go. Pre-done salads are fine. I know it's not perfect. You get a lot of dry slaws out there. Then I use my own full-fat mayonnaise, like an olive oil mayonnaise. Toss out the croutons, toss out the, crunchy things that are in there, the noodles, and you can use those things. And marinated meats, again, not perfect, but you're going to barbecue most or grill most of the sauce off. And as I say to my clients, as long as you're not sucking off the sauce or you're not putting it in and sucking it up with rice, then I think we're okay. I do use Mingles. I think I've heard that, or you're mentioning Mingles, and I don't get any money from them, but I probably should because I talk about them a lot. But they're really great. I find I use them a lot to give me flavour. And again, just going backwards, if you go and buy yourself a marinated pork rack of ribs and you've got a kale slaw, there's no prep required, but you've still got a really great low-carb meal to use. Buy your barbecue meats and bring them home, and the barbecue chook's done. Frozen veggies, I think, are still great, and I dump a whole lot of cheese in it, make this great cauliflower cheese. Everyone thinks it's an amazing, interesting recipe. It's frozen cauliflower and cheese, literally. And then Mingles, yeah. So be kitchen efficient. So some supermarket swaps, and all I'm going to do is flick through them. Now, again, this is not about being perfect. Real food is definitely what I advocate, but, in reality, sometimes we just need a toasted sandwich. Sometimes we really want crackers with the cheese. We just want life to be sometimes a little bit more like what we used to. So use these products as I would call an amber, but it will just make it long term, I think. And, sometimes you go, oh God, I could do a lettuce wrap, but God, that bread would be nice right now, toasted with some butter, of course, and, on a cold day. So, and we can get some really good reductions in our carbohydrate with some swaps. So again, and in no, specific order, but these are pastas. You can get dry pastas. You can get the konjac noodles. They come in rice and wok noodle, the konjac. And they are gluten-free. So if you do have issues with gluten or celiac, they're great to use. The other ones do have, actually, I don't think the middle one has gluten, but Herman Brock products do have gluten. If you need your rice, we've already talked about cauli rice, and konjac does a rice as well. You can make it yourself. Yes, you can buy it frozen and just steam it. Loads of bread starting to come out now, so I think, again, be mindful. It's still good to have your real food and your proteins and your salads and veg, but if you're dying for a toasted sandwich or a bread roll for your hamburgers, they do contain gluten, so if you're celiac, you cannot have them. And the yellow labelled one doesn't have seeds, so if you hate seeds, then that's the one to use. If you do have celiac or you are gluten intolerant, again, I don't make any money from these guys. These are just, I've tasted and tested everything, trust me. This is the Vernerdi bread that you can only buy in specialty shops. It's teeny tiny, costs a fortune, and you need to toast it before you use it, but it doesn't have any gluten, so it just makes life a bit easy if you can't have gluten. Sometimes we crave a bit of cereal, so there are cereals out there that you can use. Actually, the Vogel's is pretty great. It's real food ingredients. There's no additives, and it uses coconut oil, so that's pretty good. My kids ate a box of that at $12 a box, I think, in 2 days. So I was like, okay, but at least they're eating it. And that's my daughter, who's 50-50, so I was pretty chuffed. I was like, yes, but I don't say that loudly or she won't eat it again. She's like, Mum, if it's healthy, don't tell me. Again, we can do a granola. You can absolutely make your own for sure. I've talked about wraps. I do find them makes my life pretty easy. Wraps can be put in air fryers and made into crispy things that you can use for dips. Great for pizzas. And again, you just got to try and test what you like. There's a few more out there. I personally do like the Woolies brand. I find it doesn't, your finger doesn't go through it, and it rolls nicely fresh. I use those all the time for my kids, and I just haven't told them it's low carb, and they're very happy. So. And we can have crackers with all that delicious full-fat cheese that we can eat. You can make them. But again, I think you've got the vibe right now. I like to be efficient. So the Alina's seeded crackers are fabulous, and they're gluten-free, and the OB Finest do lots of crackers as well. If you do not like seeds, which I get a lot in the clinic, Nicole, if I see another seed, I'm going to scream. So I go for the Atkins crackers as well. Ice cream, winning. These are dairy-free. And again, they do have sweeteners, and they're not something I'd say every day. Chocolate, if you're a sweet tooth, and most people who are low carb, who go to low carb and they say I'm a chocoholic, I really think it's important that I have transition. So these are options. Spreads, no sugar jam is not low carb, but Natvia does one. It's a little watery, beware. Lots of nut butters without sugar, and the middle one's just a little treat. I do that for my kids, and they're teenagers, so I make them sound like they're 8, but they're 17 and 15, but they do like their Nutella, so this is their option, and it's got a little bit of vegetable oil in it, so only occasionally. Plenty of snacks in the supermarket. Cheeses, brie, pate, slap them on a cracker, eat them on their own. A few little lunchbox options, and again, kids love things in packets and everyone else has junk, so these are things I will use just to make my life less hell. So YoPro yogurts, Alina's do little snacker crackers, and the muesli bars for the odd occasion. Cheeses, sugar-free yogurts, cheese sticks. There's plenty of stuff we can put in the lunchbox. I also use a little dips. I use meatballs. Sometimes I make them, and sometimes I'll buy them, and I just check the carbs, so there's not a lot of carbs in them. And again, I'm a fan of meat patties. My kids get a lot of those weird sandwiches at school with things in the middle. Don't get me wrong, we should just still mainly focus on real food, but I think this is about living life. And to make it easier, these are just suggestions that may help. Cook once, eat twice, and that's really about doubling up recipes, repurpose what you do for your leftovers, and taco mince. I won't go right through this because I'm running out of time, but taco mince for the evening, use it the next day, use your schnitzels, just whatever you do at dinner, use it the next day in some way, and bulk cook on weekends. I think that works really nice. Food mood board planning. This is what I do every week. I literally get my phone, I take links of recipes, shove them in my phone, and each week I can look at my phone in my notes section and I'll see a pretty picture because that puts me in the mood and of food, and I can remind myself of what I've planned for the week. Then you can shop online. I think that's a great way. Then you don't get skewed with all the stuff that's out there. And finally, really, what the 4-way mug frittata and recipe is really just about batch cooking and finding a basic recipe that you can use and then just adding lots of different options to the one basic recipe. So that's the summary. I've gone over time, really sorry. You're right. But maybe you can ask me questions after so we don't make Mary late.
Now you've got time for questions.
Well, yeah.
Thank you.